Welcome to Nice and Blunt. It's now what is it? Thursday, June 15th at 4:20 p.m. Time for another live stream here on Underdog. What we're going to do is I'm going to give it a minute. Actually, maybe I should just hop in now. There are a few spots left in this draft, but basically I'm in the $3 draft. The puppy is no longer available, and there's one spot left. Maybe if you're watching, if you're ready to sign up for a league right now, you can join us, but odds are this draft, yep, it's already starting without you. So if you do want to draft with us in the future, then make sure you head over to Underdog and sign up with code Nice and Blunt. Get a $100 deposit match when you sign up. So I know most of you probably are already over there, but in case you're not, in case you want a good deal, to practice with some legit drafters. Everybody that drafts on Underdog stays for the most part. There's very few like auto pick selections. Like you don't want to be mock drafting on ESPN or right now. Unless you're on Underdog, it's very difficult to do it with real people. So this is the place to practice and use code Nice and Blunt if you want that $100 deposit matched on your first deposit. But let's get situated here. We are at the 8 spot. Not bad. I'll be honest with you, I don't love like the bookend this year. I think it's a little bit tricky, but if you are a little bit closer to the middle, you don't have to wait as long this season for picks, and maybe the ADPs will adjust, but so far I've been able to get some good values. It's easier for players to fall to you, and usually you can predict the turn that you have to worry about a little bit easier when you have like 3 or 4 picks to only account for. So I'm excited with the 8 spot, and I have him in the thumbnail with our number 2 round pick, our second round pick. I will be targeting Nick Chubb, the picture of consistency the last 5 years. He has a minimum of 8 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards from scrimmage every season, and on his career, 5.2 yards per carry. Nick Chubb is set up for success, and he's the guy we're going to be targeting with our second round pick. I'm very, very excited about Nick Chubb this season. Kareem Hunt no longer with the Browns, and with Deshaun Watson under center for the entire offseason training camp, I think this team is going to be a lot better than last year, which did surprise me, did play better than I expected under Jacoby Brissett. So we were off of Nick Chubb last year on the channel, but he's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and I will be targeting him with our second round pick because we're absolutely going to go wide receiver in the first round. On Underdog, you got to start 3 wide receivers in the league every single week, and you cannot forget that position. It's nice to have a top 10 player at wide receiver. We're probably going to go with A.J. Brown. We might take Stephon Diggs if he's still available. I'm not too worried about those rumors circulating in Buffalo that he might be not too happy, but maybe we don't get A.J. Brown. Maybe we have to pivot to Travis Kelce. I don't like Travis Kelce in round 1, to be completely honest with you. But we don't have to do it. We can take A.J. Brown, very reliable, definitely a player we trust. A.J. Brown needs to be drafted before Travis Kelce, in my opinion. I think given the roster construction on Underdog, it's very important that you lock up the best talent at that position while you can and get a guy like Travis Kelce. A.J. Brown instead of Travis Kelce. But the draft is going pretty typically a little high for Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, but he is a first-round pick. I just would wait. I'd rather take him after CeeDee Lamb goes off. But Eckler at pick 10, Amon-Ra St. Brown at pick 11. I think it's justified. There's some legit question marks about Devontae Adams, who goes at 13. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is definitely a target monster with 6 weeks without Jamison Williams, without TJ Hockenson this year, and a rookie Jahmyr Gibbs, not DeAndre Swift, in the backfield. There's just so many targets that you know are going to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I do trust him quite a bit. So far, I can't argue with any first-round picks, but Nick Chubb goes pick 15. Somebody messed up our strategy. That is unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. I'm not excited that we did not get Nick Chubb. But I think we're gonna go running back in round 2. My preference would be Saquon Barkley. I do not trust Jonathan Taylor. I don't take Chris Olave that much, but I'm not worried about Saquon and his possible holdout. I think he's the key to that Giants offense. And at the end of the year, last season, Saquon Barkley did average zero point 0.1 fantasy points more than Nick Chubb. He had 15.7. Nick Chubb at 15.6. So I was going to try and focus on Nick Chubb and some Cleveland Browns analysis for this video, but that is not going to be the case. Let's take a look at Saquon Barkley's stats last season. I have him. I trust Saquon Barkley. He's definitely a second-round pick. I was planning for this video to go Nick Chubb, but that's okay. That's all right. But last season, from a comparison standpoint, Saquon had about 100 fewer yards. He put up 1,650 total, where Nick Chubb ran for 1,760 combined yards from scrimmage. But the key difference between these two is Saquon caught 57 receptions last season, where Nick Chubb only caught 27. So if you do have any type of PPR settings in your league, I do think it's probably higher upside with Saquon, a little bit safer in terms of that PPR production. But from a touchdown perspective, that is not the case. I mean, Saquon's missed a lot of time, over 20 games in his 5-year career. And last year, he had 10 touchdowns. That was second best in his career since being a rookie, where he scored 15. Nick Chubb, as we mentioned earlier, always gets you a minimum of 8 touchdowns. So the difference isn't massive between the two. It's really splitting hairs. But I can't be upset with having Saquon Barkley in round 2. But at least today, it is a little bit safer to go with Nick Chubb, because you really never know if Saquon will be, a little bit more cutthroat with that holdout. Maybe he genuinely considers sitting out the season. I'm not worried about that. I don't think that's going to happen. The deal will probably get done, but did look a bit odd when they gave Daniel Jones that massive contract and only franchise tagged Saquon Barkley, when Barkley was really the key for their success last season. He's their best player by far and away. Maybe Darren Waller could come close, but Saquon, definitely a player you need to trust. But now we can probably pivot back to wide receiver. I think that's the focus for the most part. I think if you start off just rattling off those receiver picks, by the time you have 5 in like the first 7 rounds, you can move off the position and get really good value at other spots. So, it's very tempting, however, to grab Derrick Henry, who's falling to pick 32. I have not seen that happen in quite some time. We would be set, pretty much done for running back the rest of the way. Yeah, it's a little egregious that he's fallen this far. I'm just going to take it. I don't absolutely love the receivers in this range. Like Debo. Honestly, Brandon Ayuk was actually better than him on a per game basis. It was very close, but you get Brandon Ayuk for such a big discount compared to Debo. I would rather take Derrick Henry straight up. And then Keenan Allen last year missed a lot of time. Little bit tough to trust, but should be solid from a floor perspective. Then there's Christian Watson, who you got to bet on Jordan Love working out, and I'm not ready to do that. I have no confidence in Jordan Love. I think there's a legit chance that the Packers are in position to draft Caleb Williams when this season is over. I think if Jordan Love is really that bad, it's not like the Packers were great last year with Aaron Rodgers. If it's a big drop-off at that position, I would be terrified to highly commit myself to the Packers offense. And with a third-round pick, I think Christian Watson has a lot of bust potential. He will have some boom weeks, but I don't think he'll be as consistent as you would like from the average third-round pick. I think running back or quarterback are way safer in round 3. Rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. I think you can get some really good wide receiver talent. So that's what we're going to favor the rest of the way in this draft. We already locked up 2 top 10 running backs. And in order for this team to win, that needs to work out. So we're not going to bet against it with future picks. But Christian Watson is falling to round 4 a little bit. Only a couple picks. I mean, I know I kind of told you not to take him in round 3, but at ADP, I'm not like super terrified of it. I can't say I love it, though. But when you look at those stats last season, 7 total touchdowns. He does have elite speed. He is definitely their number one weapon. So I'm going to go with Christian Watson just because it's round 4. In round 3, I don't want to do it. But in round 4, I think it is a bit justified. Let's head over to Player Profiler, where we can really pinpoint what makes Christian Watson an elite talent at the wide receiver position. Let's bring this down just a little bit. There we go. Runs a 4.36. That's the 96th percentile in terms of speed at the position. He's 6'4", 208 pounds. His arms are 32 3/4 inches. 32-inch arms are legit very, very big wingspan for Christian Watson. But as well, he has a 98th percentile speed score, burst score in the 95th percentile, and a catch radius also in the 97th percentile. His agility score is really the only blemish on this profile. Christian Watson is a elite athlete. I feel more comfortable taking him in round 4 than I do in round 3, because let's just take a look at his stats last season. He did get hurt as well. He was injured multiple times last season, and that definitely impacted some of his production. We all remember that drop pass against Minnesota in week 1. So if that hit, he would have gone over 100 yards and a touchdown. So it would have had an elite breakout. But he got hurt pretty quickly, missed a game in week 3, and then week 6 went down again. He came back, but weeks 8 and 9 really weren't anything to be impressed with. Not more than 17 snaps in either of those 2 games. However, the close to the season, especially when Romeo Doubs was injured, 8 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 7, 6, 8, 5, 6. And then 4 catches pretty much every single time. And there were 4 straight games where he caught 7 total touchdowns, 3, 2, 1, 1 in this 4-game stretch. It did kind of tail off a little bit at the end, but a third game with over 100 receiving yards in week 17, I guess week 18 actually. And that's the upside you are looking for, that you're expecting with Christian Watson. I don't think it'll be there every week. I think there's also going to be some bad games from the Packers this season. So this is really just like a ceiling type of play, but we know that we're going to hammer wide receiver with at least the next 3 picks, if not maybe 4. And I'm not too worried to have him, given the elite talent we already scooped up at running back. But it is a little bit tricky here. I do like Justin Herbert in this range. I wouldn't hate it if we wound up with him. But I can't say I'm like super targeting the Chargers in this draft. If not, I'd go Michael Pittman. However, yeah, I'm going to go Michael Pittman. I'm going to pray that maybe Justin Herbert falls back to us. It's very unlikely that that's the case. But instead of drafting him exactly at ADP, let's try and get a value at quarterback in this draft and stick with the game plan. Wide receiver is already drying up. It's important that we don't ignore that position, because look at how much orange there is on this board. It's definitely engulfing the color palette, and orange is the color for wide receivers. That's the trend on these underdog drafts. I think everyone learned from last year that talent really dries up quickly. If you want to have good depth, if you want to be competitive at that position, you need to target wide receiver early. So we're going with Michael Pittman. We're hoping that Anthony Richardson works out. That's opening the door for maybe that stack. He has really good rushing upside, so the stack isn't essential, but I might consider taking Anthony Richardson later in this draft. Herbert does go off, unfortunately, but I'm not upset about it, especially because we went double running back in rounds 2 and 3. I think it would hurt us a little bit to grab quarterback and tight end early if we're not getting significant value, if they're not falling at least like 5-6 spots past their ADP. So value is the name of the game sometimes, and that's what we're going to stick with when it comes to our game plan. But Chris Godwin goes off, and it does get a little tricky. I'm very tempted to go George Kittle, because that would be nice, but I've been mentioning it, how important it is. I'm just going to stick with wide receiver. And in round 6, there's a chance that JSN is the most valuable. The ADP suggests this is the pick, but I've taken him a lot, to be honest with you, in these underdog drafts, and I have a really good feeling about Treylon Burks this season. I am a huge, huge fan of his talent, and I believe, at least in the beginning of the year, when Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback, he needs to prove he can get him the ball. There's going to be a ton of volume for him. There's no competition. They let go of Robert Woods, and I'm not worried about Kyle Phillips and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And let's just take a look at their schedule. If it doesn't work out for the Titans early on, I think they're going to pivot to Will Levis, who has a bit of a cannon for an arm, also fell to the second round, played for Kentucky. Great spot for him, honestly. I am really excited about Treylon Burks, because especially if Will Levis is the QB, I think there's going to be more targets for him later on. And we're also possibly setting ourselves up for a Titan stack. But I think they're going to start off with only like one win. Maybe they beat New Orleans week 1, but I think they're going to lose to the Chargers, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Maybe they even lose to the Colts on the road. It's in division. It could happen. And then Baltimore week 6. That's another L. And at that point, if you're 1-5, you drafted Will Levis. Why not shift, see what you got, and find out if he can play or not. You need to address that position again. The schedule really opens up the season, though. Atlanta, excellent matchup, great secondary. Pittsburgh, not a secondary. Tampa Bay, more of a rushing defense. Jacksonville, not a bad secondary. The Panthers do have a legit corner, but maybe they're not showing up on that day. Who knows? And then the Colts, not a secondary that really terrifies you. Miami, pretty legit defense this year, but then weeks 15, 16, 17, Houston, Seattle, and then another Houston matchup. Boy, the schedule for the Titans is actually really, really juicy. Just want to make sure our pick is not coming up here, but especially in the fantasy playoffs, Houston has had the league worst record-setting, terrible rushing defense for the last 2 seasons. If you're telling me you get a healthy Derrick Henry at the end of the year against Houston in 2 fantasy playoff matchups, that is a league-winning schedule for the Tennessee Titans. Maybe Derrick Henry goes down. We did draft Derrick Henry, but I love his handcuff Tyjae Spears, a player I'm really high on this year. And you'd have excellent matchups. I think that would be not exactly a 1-for-1 substitute. I really doubt that Tyjae Spears is as elite as Derrick Henry, but he has the potential for the same type of workload. Other than those 3 players, Burks, Tyjae Spears, and Derrick Henry, who else do the Titans have? It's a very narrow target tree in Tennessee, and I absolutely, absolutely love some of their value in the ADP. I think Treylon Burks, going to pick 70, absolutely worth the 6th round ADP. I'm not afraid to reach on him a few spots. I think he is more valuable than Deontay Johnson and Mike Evans, as well as all of these 7th round receivers. The only one I'd be maybe more inclined to pick traditionally would be JSN. As I mentioned, I have a lot of him already. But we did not go Justin Herbert, so that does not mean we should take Quentin Johnston. But Jordan Addison has fallen a little bit. Yeah, he's fallen to pick 80. That's 11 spots in ADP. I'm absolutely going to take Jordan Addison, another rookie. Really excited about. Caught 1,600 receiving yards 2 years ago for Pittsburgh, the Biletnikoff winner before he went to USC, where honestly he wasn't used properly, in my opinion, in the Trojans' offense. I think Lincoln Riley could have spotlighted him a little bit more, but it didn't really matter. Jordan Addison was a first-round pick in the NFL. At the end of the day, that's what you want. That's what you're looking for. And it's a great landing spot in Minnesota to fill in for Adam Thielen. But especially getting him lower than ADP by about 10 picks. Ooh, beautiful, beautiful value. So that's our draft so far. We got A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Christian Watson, Michael Pittman, Treylon Burks, and Jordan Addison. Maybe the value is so tempting on wide receiver in this next round. Nope, I can already tell you it's not. I'm not excited about any of the running backs here. We are going to pivot back to running back. I'm not excited about the wide receivers. Excuse me. We're going to pivot back to running back. Love David Montgomery in this range. Hopefully we do not get sniped. The value does not look the same. If we do end up with James Conner, it's not the end of the world. He has more of a direct path to a 3-down workload in Arizona. Dave Montgomery's a little bit injury dependent, and he does go off. So that's a bit of a bummer. I do prefer Dave Montgomery, But I don't think the tier break is massive. As long as we're getting one of these two guys, we're going to be okay. And remember, this is our RB3. We do not need James Conner to be our savior. However, James Conner could absolutely smash this ADP when it comes to his production. James Conner is one of the very few weapons in Arizona. And for the last two seasons, he is one of the leading touchdown leaders in the NFL. 18 touchdowns 2 seasons ago in Arizona, 8 last year, and he only played in 13 games. On a per game basis, James Conner has a nose for the end zone. And let me just remind you of his game log. Once Kyler Murray went down, I want to say that, was it the San Francisco game? I believe it was week 11 when Kyler Murray went down. Following that game where Colt McCoy was the quarterback, which is what we're going to expect for the majority of the season, James Conner had 20 plus touches per game. 25 for 120, 15 for 85, 16 for 63, 15 for 79, 16 for 79. Plenty of touchdowns in that span as well. But then he also gets a lot of looks in the receiving game. 3 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets, 8 targets, another 3 targets, and another receiving touchdown. The value on James Conner, if he stays fully healthy in this offense with a lot of garbage time, could absolutely return a top 20 running back. And where we're drafting him, that's definitely more valuable than the ADP would suggest. So while I do prefer David Montgomery, as I mentioned, I am not upset at all with James Conner. Love the value on running back in round 8, especially. Sometimes Dalvin Cook falls to you at the 7-8 turn. Dalvin Cook is such a good pick in round 7. Like, everyone's hyping up Alexander Mattison and just forgetting about Dalvin Cook, but if he goes to Miami, if he goes to Denver, even if he goes to, like, Buffalo, I think Dalvin Cook would be way more valuable than pick 81 would suggest here on Underdog. So just great picks at the running back position. We are pretty stacked at both of those positions, running back and wide receiver, so far in this draft. I'm really happy just ignoring tight end and quarterback in these Underdog settings. Like, you just get such good value. We might be getting Njoku. If not, Freiermuth is also a top 10 guy at pick 104. And I think that is probably the strategy to take, because there are 2 teams in the next 8 picks who draft twice that do not have tight end themselves. Given the tier break at the position, Njoku already goes off. So yeah, Freiermuth is absolutely my pick here. Love his value in, what is this, the 9th round? Outside the top 100, Freiermuth, who put up 7 touchdowns as a rookie, increased his yards by about 240 in his sophomore season, had 20 more targets in the Kenny Pickett offense. I think is going to have an even better year 3. His touchdowns fell to only 2 last season, but those could easily bounce back to 7+. And if they're double digits, then Pat Freiermuth is going to be a league-winning tight end if you get him in round 9. He's one of my most highly drafted players. I think he's my number 1 tight end this season, because I actually think he's more valuable than David Njoku straight up, as well as Evan Ingram. I have him right behind Darren Waller, but there's less injury risk, and Freiermuth in round 9, absolutely a bust-proof pick. The only way he doesn't work out is if he gets hurt, and you can say that about any single player in the NFL. It's football at the end of the day, and I absolutely love Pat Freiermuth in round 9, a league-winning tight end. But quarterback is starting to dry up a little bit quickly. There have been 3 that have gone off the board in the last 5-6 picks, and we do not have our starting guy yet. So we are definitely going to take quarterback with this selection. It's just a position of need, and we are the last team. Yeah, we're the last team in this draft to take a quarterback. So honestly, that's not a bad strategy at all. If anything, that kind of gives us an advantage, given the value you can still get. I think Rodgers is actually going to be pretty good. I don't worry about him at all. Damn, he goes off though. We are absolutely in a pinch here, and I'm not going to risk it, even though this is a bit of a reach in terms of ADP. This position is highly coveted in this draft, and I will be taking Jared Goff. I am a believer in the Detroit Lions this season, and last year, Jared Goff was absolutely, absolutely elite at home. Jared Goff is terrible on the road. His splits at home versus on the road are quite drastic. But let's just look at specifically the home games for Jared Goff last year. 215 and 2 touchdowns against Philly, only 1 interception. The next week he threw for 256 and 4 touchdowns against Washington. Week 4, 378 and 4 touchdowns. Those are elite numbers at the quarterback position for fantasy. Against Miami, 321 and a touchdown, not bad at all. Against Green Bay, 137, 2 touchdowns, divisional game. Tough secondary. I don't really blame him for that. But week 11 against Buffalo, 242 touchdowns. Jacksonville, 342 touchdowns. Minnesota, 333 touchdowns. And then Chicago, week 16, 255 and 3 touchdowns. He throws a lot more interceptions when he's on the road. He was starting to kind of just click into gear at the end of the season where it didn't really matter if it was home or on the road. But given this type of production with Jared Goff last season at home, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game when he plays at Ford Field. If that is what you're getting this season, in at least 8 games, from a best ball perspective, I absolutely, absolutely love Jared Goff's value as your quarterback one. He's really going in round 11, but given the run on the position lately, I'm not afraid to take him at all in round 10, especially if you've waited on the position. You do need other quarterbacks. I cannot tell you that I'm confident going into my season or the end of this draft with just Jared Goff and like a really, really cheap backup quarterback. I'm probably going to draft 3 quarterbacks in this on this roster, but having Jared Goff as my number 1 is a player I am not afraid to rely on. And given how good the rest of my flex options are, I love it. I think we have a really, really competitive roster. Obviously, I'm biased, but let me know what you think in the comment section if you have any problem with any of my picks up to this point. Let's remind you what our picks were. In round 1, we went with A.J. Brown of the Eagles, followed by Saquon Barkley of the Giants in round 2. We were hoping for Nick Chubb, but we got sniped. Then we went Derrick Henry, who fell almost 9 spots to us at pick 32. Then we went Christian Watson, Michael Pittman, Treylon Burks, and Jordan Addison, who fell about 10 spots. Great value on Jordan Addison. We followed that up with James Conner as our RB3 in round 8, and then Pat Freiermuth, Jared Goff at the 9-10 turn. We're about to be on the clock again, and the running back value here is pretty solid, but maybe we want to grab Russell Wilson just because we're not going to get a quarterback of his caliber. And the team at the turn did take Jerry Jeudy. So I am very afraid of them having that stack. And let's just show you the value at quarterback that's about to fall off a massive cliff once Russell Wilson is off the board. We have Carr, not a guy I fully trust. Jordan Love, no chance I'm drafting him, even though we have Christian Watson. Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray, very big question marks. I am a firm believer in Sean Payton, a head coach. They're going to be way better than last year. And there were also some stats for Russell Wilson once Nathaniel Hackett wasn't the coach that really point to him being very, very valuable, very effective as a fantasy quarterback. He should finish top 15 if those stats repeat. They could be way better. I think 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and over 4,000 passing yards are very legit projections for Russell Wilson this season with Sean Payton as head coach. He's just an excellent play caller. He can really fix any of the mistakes that we've seen happen for Russell Wilson. And I have a really strong feeling that he's going to play well this year. I think to get him in round 11, really, really solid. The Jared Goff-Russell Wilson combo, I think, is a safe bet. If you ignore that position, as long as I did. But they do have a same bye week. While it's not the end of the world, maybe I don't want a bagel. I did tell you I'm going to draft a third, so I might try and make sure that our third quarterback does not have a week 9 bye. But we have Pat Freiermuth. I'm probably going to target Kenny Pickett for the stack, and that would fix itself in terms of that bye week correlation. But yeah, feeling good about this draft so far. Really, really good. And you're telling me I get Russell Wilson where this guy gets Stafford in the same 3 picks? Like, whew, there is way less risk with Russell Wilson, in my opinion. Stafford's more appealing if you get him like 2 rounds later, but there's a lot of risk that he goes down with injury this year, just like he did last year. They drafted Stetson Bennett for a reason, and I'd rather not reach. On Matthew Stafford, I'd rather have him fall to me at a good value. But we might be getting Rashad Penny. That's excellent value. An ADP of 115. How did he fall 20 spots? This doesn't make any sense to me. Like, especially if Swift goes down, that's a very high likelihood. Penny could be a league winner, and where I'm getting him, hell yes. I'm not going to pass on Rashad Penny. 20 picks later than ADP. Oh boy, that is deserving of a bong rip. That's a reason to celebrate, my friends. And we didn't do it 30 minutes ago when this draft started at 4:20. It's only 4:50, so apologies, but it's got to happen at some point in this draft. If you've been on these live streams before, you know I need to take a rip right now. Always pleasant. But I will be right back in just a second. I'm going to grab a beverage, and I will return in a few seconds. Coconut water. So refreshing. Such a good drink. I've drank in coconut water and mentioned this on the channel once before. I was drinking Vita Coco back in the day, but I realized Vita Coco is not 100% juice. It's close to it, but they actually add something in it, whereas the Trader Joe's brand not only is exactly 100% juice, there is not a single ingredient other than coconut water. It's also $3 cheaper. If you are interested in coconut water, I recommend getting it from Trader Joe's. You can usually get a liter for like under $3, where sometimes they charge like $6+ for a liter of like Vita Coco. I know this is not the content you came for. This is not football related at all, but I think that's just an egregious markup. I don't want to see any viewers of the channel that like coconut water as much as me wasting their money on Vita Coco when you can get 2 for the price of 1 at Trader Joe's. This is not sponsored at all. Just purely my rehydration preferences that I'm sharing on my own accord. But let's get back to this draft. Who we gonna target with our 13th round pick? The running backs on the board do not speak to me. We also have really good players at the position already. That is not a position of need at all. We've ignored wide receiver for a while. We do have Jordan Addison. I mean, in a scenario where Justin Jefferson gets hurt, maybe KJ Osborne is worth it, but I don't want to bet on that. I don't want too many Vikings. I'm not very high on them this season, so maybe pass there. Tight end is about to dry up. Tight end is definitely hitting a tier break. And quarterback, our guy should still be available in Kenny Pickett at the turn. We're going to grab Irv Smith here because we do not want to get sniped on a value like Irv Smith. That is a position of need for us. Our tight end 2 in Cincinnati has a ton of upside. I was actually really high on Irv Smith last year. Before he got hurt, back when he was in Minnesota, there was a season where he started to break out. He had a stretch at the end of, I want to say like 3 years ago. It was 3 seasons ago. Irv Smith was a top 12 tight end for about an 8-week stretch with the Vikings. Then he got hurt, and he missed all of 2021. And then last year, he missed training camp with a hand injury, never really got going in the Kevin O'Connell system, and he went down, and they immediately replaced him with TJ Hawkinson, who they traded for. Irv Smith has never really had like a legit chance himself since that first initial injury after his breakout 3 years ago. So now he's in Cincinnati. There's definitely an opportunity for him. I like his value. I don't think he's that much different than guys like Cole Kmet. Higbee and Dulcich, I think, have a higher floor, but from a ceiling standpoint, I think Irv Smith could finish the season with like 8+ touchdowns. That wouldn't baffle me. I wouldn't be completely shocked if that happened. But this is pick 161, and I might need to reach on Kenny Pickett 10 spots. I am. I'm going to take Kenny Pickett. I do not want to get sniped, and many teams after me only have one quarterback. I could see a big run on the position in the next round here, and I would be a little bit upset if I did not get Kenny Pickett, who I'm targeting with our Pat Freiermuth stack. I think Kenny Pickett could take a big leap in year 2. He was much better at the end of the season. They finished in their last 9 games. The Steelers, I think, are going to be a playoff team this year, and I think Kenny Pickett in round 14 is way more valuable than Jordan Love. I think going to offer more consistency than Bryce Young, who's, I think, really going to struggle in the beginning of the season. And then Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, much bigger question marks with them. Like, will Purdy miss any time? Will Trey Lance steal any of his job, perhaps? And then, obviously, Kyler Murray is going to miss a lot of time. If you're not in the tournament setting where the end of the season is definitely like a... You want to maximize ceiling in weeks 15, 16, 17 in the tournament. And in this 12-team setting, I'm only doing a $3 league. Like, I only have to beat these 11 other teams, not all 200,000 other teams drafted in the puppy. I am not interested in Kyler Murray in this setting where it's not the tournament. So Kenny Pickett, I think, is worth the reach. Maybe I'll regret it. I was also thinking about maybe Jerome Ford, but we didn't need running back like crazy, given we have some good options at the top. I'd much rather have Tyjae Spears and kind of just lock up the Tennessee backfield for myself. But maybe Spears won't be available. That is possible. But again, I expect a lot of quarterbacks here. Yep, 2 go off right there. And then I think the 2 picks before me will also be quarterbacks. So I'm not going to regret my Kenny Pickett selection if that's indeed the case and we can get Tyjae Spears with pick 176. Be very happy with that. But in case we don't get him, then we'll consider one of these other handcuffs. I can't say I'm like, damn, he goes off. He goes off. That's a bummer. We could consider Kenny Gainwell. I mean, we have Rashad Penny. If he goes down, then Kenny Gainwell is going to have way more value in this offense. And it's not like DeAndre Swift is a guy I trust to stay healthy himself. So that might be what we do here. We might corner 2 of the Philadelphia running backs, given running back is really a position of need, really going off the board at a high rate right now. That's probably what I'm going to do. The wide receiver value later is usually fine. And given we have Russell Wilson, I don't think anyone's going to target Marvin Mims. I think it's more valuable to get Kenny Gainwell as a complement to our Rashad Penny investment. So while we did reach on him a little bit, that's the name of the game at that position right now. See, Ty Chandler goes off. Massive reach on Ty Chandler. Not confident at all in Ty Chandler. In the same way I'm confident in Kenny Gainwell, especially from a ceiling perspective. You at least know Gainwell has a weekly role, albeit small, in this Eagles offense. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl,
And that was probably one of the reasons why they were more comfortable moving off of DeAndre Swift, because at least there's one guy who they somewhat trust. Moving off of Miles Sanders, excuse me. They brought in DeAndre Swift, who has struggled with injuries a lot. That's why he only was worth a 4th-round pick to the Detroit Lions, despite them drafting him at the top of the 2nd round, I believe. Yeah, Swift was either a late 1st-round selection or an early 2nd-round pick. But you know the Eagles love their Georgia Bulldogs. They cannot get enough of the Georgia players. But this has been a fun draft. Very, very fun draft. Tim Patrick goes off. That's interesting. I think I'd prefer Marvin Mims. The Broncos traded up to get him, whereas Patrick has no established chemistry with Russell Wilson, and it's not like Sean Payton has ever played with him himself. He brought in Marquez Callaway as a deep threat as well, but the draft capital invested in Mims, I think, is, especially as the season goes on, a reason for them to really get him going and see what they have in him. He has a good profile from a prospect standpoint. We'll take a look at his player profiler page right after we draft him, assuming we don't get sniped. But that is definitely my pick. I definitely want some type of correlation with Russell Wilson on this roster. We don't have any other Denver Bronco. Yeah, that's who I'm going to take. I'm going to take Marvin Mims. Feel pretty good about it. Let's take a look at his player profiler page. Whew. 4'3", 840, 5'11", 183, 31 and 5/8 inch arms. And he was taken at pick 232. And at the age of 21, there are definitely some breakout potential. There's definitely some breakout potential looming for Marvin Mims. His best comp, according to Player Profiler, is Darnell Mooney. So from a deep threat standpoint, that is the favorite, in my opinion, to break out for the Sean Payton, Russell Wilson Broncos offense. And because we have Russell Wilson as our QB2, we want some type of correlation. I'm very happy to have Marvin Mims as our wide receiver 6 in round 185. A rookie that I think could have a really good ceiling from a best ball perspective. Let's take a look at his season last year. Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma, declared as a junior. That's something you like to see. If they stayed as a senior and there isn't like some glaring reason why, like an injury or COVID, for instance, then if they're able to declare early as a junior, that's always a good sign, always a reason to feel confident. But as a freshman, he only had 37 receptions, but 9 of those were touchdowns. Very, very high production in terms of touchdowns as a rookie at Oklahoma in the Lincoln Riley system 3 years ago, back in 2020. But 2 years ago, a little bit fewer receptions, but more efficiency from a yards per reception standpoint. 5 touchdowns as a sophomore. And then last year, his receptions really blew open. 54 for 1,083 in 13 games. That's not amazing. That's not like incredible, but it's definitely an improvement. It's definitely solid. 1,000 receiving yards in college as a junior is definitely a reason to be excited. And then 20 total touchdowns in 37 career games in college. That's a really high rate. Definitely excited about Marvin Mims' ceiling from a touchdown perspective. Stacked with Russell Wilson, I think that's really valuable. Touchdowns, I think, will be his contribution mostly in this offense. So that's a stack I'm definitely comfortable with. I also like the Greg Dulcich stack. I love the Jerry Jeudy stack. I am very worried about the Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick stacks with Russell Wilson, but Marvin Mims definitely a valuable one for sure. Wide receiver is a position we also kind of need. We have only 2 picks left in this draft. We have 3 quarterbacks already. We're done over there. We have 5 running backs. I think we're done over there, especially given who we have. But at wide receiver, we only have 6, and tight end, we have 2. We are at least taking one more wide receiver. That is for sure. That is definitely the way we're going to go. But we do not have Jared Goff stacked at all. And while the ADP tells you to go Marvin Jones, I am actually going to go with Josh Reynolds. It's round 17. It's pick 200, so this might look like a reach. We could get somebody else. But I don't really care going like outside the norm with your round 17 selection, especially when you normally draft 16 rounds. This is just what you want, what you feel comfortable with. And in terms of stacking Detroit Lions, in those first 6 games when Jameson Williams is suspended, I think Jared Goff is going to go to his most reliable weapon in terms of the last several years. This relationship goes back to the Rams. And last year, I'll point it out. We have some time. I'll go on to Pro Football Reference and tell you what stats make me think this is a wise selection in terms of the Jared Goff stack. Last year, there were some games early on when obviously Jameson Williams wasn't on the field, but Amon-Ra St. Brown went down with injury. And before he got hurt, Josh Reynolds missed some time last year. There was a 3-game stretch where he had 28 targets, almost 300 yards here, and a touchdown. There was some really big boom games in weeks 3, 4, 5 for Josh Reynolds. And while I do not expect that for the entire season from him, I think there's a legit chance that even when Jameson Williams comes back, he's the 3rd receiver in this rotation and does offer some boom potential, could find his way into the end zone. I'm a little bit worried about the rookie tight end Sam Laporta really eating into that workload, as well as the rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs taking more than the workload that was just going to DeAndre Swift out of the backfield. So Marvin Jones is also still on the board, so we could double stack and just pray for the best. Marvin Jones is a bit older, though, but he's much taller, and he's typically the more safer touchdown option, but I'm worried about his health. I actually would rather take a shot on rookie wide receiver Nathaniel Tank Dell out of Houston. Maybe I am just confused by the tape. Maybe the tape is lying to me, but if you watch his highlight reel, the tape on Tank Dell is amazing. And let me pull up his player profiler page. He is a really, really interesting prospect. Tank would be his nickname, so we'll go with Nathaniel Dell out of Houston. Remember, he got drafted by Houston, so he does not need to move. He is very comfortable in that city, and he is a fan favorite when it comes to the college fans in Texas that are rooting for Houston. So he's been lighting it up for that college. It's not the most elite conference, but still, he is definitely a really good player. A 4.49 40, so not like elite speed, but pretty good. His speed score, not ideal, but his comp is Isaiah McKenzie. This is the type of role that we're looking for. Houston has a lot of touches up for grabs, and his arms are definitely long for his size. He's only 5'8", 165 pounds. Maybe that's a concern. He's 23 years old as well. However, the reason he was taken with pick 6 of the 3rd round is because CJ Stroud loves him. They hit it off at the combine. They became really good friends, and he didn't get to play with JSN, who they traded out of number 12 and didn't take in the 1st round. He wanted a guy that he liked, and he asked them to take Tank Dell. They did it, and when you look at his stats, there's some really, really encouraging metrics for Nathaniel Dell. He was really good. Listed at 5'10", but at the combine he came in at 5'8". So don't believe this, but 155 I think is a little bit on the low side probably. But look, the last 2 seasons, 90 catches minimum for Houston. Minimum 1,300 receiving yards in at least 13 games, as well as a minimum 12 receiving touchdowns. Last year, he caught 17 receiving touchdowns. Like, he was incredible. He is a really good football player. And given what's up for grabs in Houston, I absolutely love his ADP. If you look at the other Houston Texans wide receivers, Nico Collins is going as wide receiver 63, pick 136. I think Tank Dell is much better than Nico Collins. And given it's a new quarterback, new coach, I don't think anyone is committed to Nico Collins. I think he's going to fade very quickly. But the player I'm really interested in is in John Mechie. I believe in his talent. But John Mechie is coming off of a fight with leukemia. While it is an excellent story, there's always a scenario where he just isn't able to produce at a elite level. He may not be their wide receiver one. If that is not the case, then maybe it's Robert Woods, but maybe, just maybe, CJ Stroud sends the ball to his best buddy, Nathaniel Dell, and that friendship pays some big dividends. For fantasy purposes, I'm getting him in round 18. Even if he doesn't work out, there is no risk involved. There is nothing but upside. So those are my picks. That is my team. And let's just refresh you on the build. We went with 3 quarterbacks. We took Jared Goff in round 10, Russell Wilson in round 11, and Kenny Pickett, I believe, in round 14, maybe 15. I think it was round 14. But then we went with Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry in rounds 2-3, James Conner in round 8, Rashad Penny in round 12. We got excellent value on Rashad Penny. He fell 20 picks to us. Then we got Kenny Gainwell in round 15 as the handcuff, essentially, to Penny. One of these 2 Philly running backs, I think, is getting a lot of touches and could score double-digit touchdowns, possibly, especially if DeAndre Swift goes down. And at the very least, we are getting one of them that should pay off at a pretty solid return on investment. But at wide receiver, we took A.J. Brown in round 1. Round 4, we took Christian Watson. Round 5, we took Pickman. Round 6, we took Burks. Round 7, Jordan Addison fell to us. And then late in the draft, we took Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, and Nathaniel Dell to round out this wide receiver core with 8. But Pat Freiermuth, Irv Smith are our tight ends. It could be a little better, but from a floor perspective, Pat Freiermuth will finish top 10 in a 12-team league. That's all you need. And Irv Smith could be the breakout tight end this season, could definitely finish top 10 if he scores enough touchdowns. That's what we're hoping for. So that is it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And if you are interested in my rankings, then you can find that over on Patreon at the link below in the description. But you can also use my code Nice and Blunt on Underdog for a $100 deposit match on sign up, and don't forget about that. But that's it for me. My name is Adam Riancho, and thank you very much for watching Nice and Blunt.